Trust, the secret ingredient. I want to tell everyone how much we are appreciating the wisdom that others are throwing our way in their own words, right? It's their own ways of dealing with the controversy that surrounds who I am in some people's minds, or in many others, depending on where they land on this computer of mine, right? I spend a lot of time on the computer of late, telling people my own perspective, correct? But from higher levels of love of life. And the idea that I somehow survived the process that I went through was because I trusted in myself and my own soul's ability to rise up out of the victimhood of whoever I came across that placed that vision upon me in my heart, in my chest. The burdens that I bore or bear are mine to do. What I don't do is I don't allow for others to demean my process that may have looked messy on the outside, but by golly, it sure got me to a place of hell in some people's minds because they themselves forgot to highlight the beauty of themselves when they went through that process. So you see, when you highlight the beauty of who we are, we all get to vibrate in the beauty of who we are, whether or not we align in our minds or in our soul's vision, correct? You see, that's where many people are aligning with this idea that our minds are the only thing that we create with, rather than the reality of our own soul's inner wisdom of what our subconscious and our conscious are giving us. This is why many are not thriving in their visions, because on a subconscious level, they know they are at odds with others, and they want to be free from the conflict of any and all. This is where she sits. I'm tired of blasting out messages of love for all, when others are saying my books matter more to me than the love of anybody else outside of it. We've separated ourselves enough. But it's a unity vision that we often create with when we hold ourselves up to a higher vision of the love of life. And when we do that vision out of the strife of family tree drama, which is where many land in their hearts here on this plane, versus I'm here to tell you my process as a soul of soul. I'm here to let you know that it wasn't the easiest place for me to be, but it was the most natural landing place I could have ever imagined. For when you align with the beauty of who you are in your heart, you know for sure I'm in a good spot for this time of my life. My own soul was doing the work of an angel for a long time, is what some would have said. Not knowing that I align with the vision of love of all those souls in those visions of religious institutions, whether or not they understand it as such or not. You see, many of us are saying it is a denial of our own soul's wisdom to align with anyone other than someone who guided us to a path of safekeeping until we ourselves were able to rise into the vision of love of ourselves and our souls and our soulmates and our guidance souls, correct? We have so many wisdom keepers on our hearts who have said, I matter, all of us matter, we all are visions of one unit of energy at some point in time. But to deny us our individuality is where some go, thinking that somehow it's a better place to create from, rather than the uniqueness of who we are as souls wandering this plane of discovery, correct? It's more about Brenda's vision, is what some would say. And in essence, she's not going to dishonor herself by saying that she has a say in how she is to be. She doesn't get dictated to very much. She gets guided from her soul, not dictated to, not told how to be, but words of wisdom, words of alliance sometimes, if it is indeed needed to take her out of a dangerous situation. What does that tell you about who she is? She knows no bounty other than what her soul is able to grant her, is what some would say. When in fact, her own religious upbringing was very detrimental to her soul, is what some would say. It was lacking in it. She's grateful for the lack of that kind of vision, for it freed her from many of the obligations that others are holding themselves to, based on the idea of I'm here to serve everybody in the best way I can. You see, when I go through a process of soul discovery, it doesn't mean I'm limiting others their own processes, or I'm telling them how to be. I'm lifting myself to a place of our souls are combining on various levels, and we're able to see the discovery of each other in each way that we can. My own soul was designed at one point by another soul based on that process of discovery. And yet, with each breath that I took and each system that I partook in, I said, this is not the whole answer. It's just one more interpretation of a system of who I am. My strength resides within. My life is my bounty. My wisdom is my sword, is what some would say. I align with the sword of justice in certain situations only. And my vision for who deserves my, quote, victimhood vision, right? For I have placed myself there on many an occasion during this process, unwinding it bit by bit over my lifetimes. And I say that with honesty. I have been here for many years doing the work of many without knowing the projections that others are placing upon me when they hear the words of wisdom related to their own institutional uncoverings. And yet, I set myself free from the idea that I need to enlighten anyone else to those conditionings as I would with any other system. I can see the beauty in the systems where they are, but I find the limitations daunting, not only for me, but for those who partake in them, if they are feeling out of sync with that kind of vision. You see, when you go to your own soul, you feel the glove slip on, and the feelings of love adore each other. It is a uniting of our hearts and souls in many ways, in many realms, and in many loves. I don't just create with myself as of yet, but there are those moments of love for each other that we often create knowing we're working with more than who we are here. And that is the nature of those who say, I trust in my soul that guards me. I'm the one who undoes the guardianship of who I am. For I am not afraid of who I am, or what I value, or what I hold dear to me in my mind. I know what I know is what many would say, claiming victory in their hearts for the vision of love of each other in our own ways, whether or not we agree to disagree or fight it out on the soul level, right? Brenda's had to partake in certain instances of that kind of, quote, leveling of the playing field. That's what she calls it. We called it soul retrieval. And it's not the easiest thing for many to work with. I'm retrieving those souls who have an issue with who I am, and I'm working it out bit by bit. Whether or not they want to partake in that vision on this plane or not, it makes no difference. I know who you are. I love who you are in most moments, right? I don't care about the love is where many are going. And when they align with the vision of I'm here to serve myself and others, they soon realize that that vision of service gets disjointed in the minds of many when they say, but my service is being disregarded, or it's not wanted, or it's not allowed by certain systems, right? I'm not allowed to speak to those who are willing themselves to come into contact with the love of their lives, and yet they will not deny themselves their own soul's wisdom. And in doing so, it's a break from the tradition of soul that says we align with the highest aspects of who we are, not every aspect of who we are. Okay, so this is why we have those, it's like the waiting game for many, wondering where trust comes in, right? The secret ingredient, you step into your fears. You step into them. You feel the vibration of hatred or of guidance that's misguided, right? I've had my moments of it. I want you all to free yourselves from the fear of who you are on the soul level. Because in essence, you're of the love of all, whether or not you know it now or not. You've had a disservice handed to you by many who say to be fearful is to be known, right? It's the unknown. And that is why we're here to help those who want to free themselves from the fear of the unknown to the place in their lives where they vibrate freely, clearly enticing others into their vision and saying, I love who I am always, and I know that I'm not cherished by my mother or my father for whatever vision I have placed upon the screen, right? Do you know how many family members are waiting for me on the other side of the veil to hug me for the work that I've done, not just for myself and my own family, but for those generational inputs that are either coming forward and saying, I was one of them, those discards of society that didn't matter to those people in whatever books they were looking at. So you see, it's not that there is a demeaning or a demonizing of anybody. It's an understanding and caring attention to our hearts, our souls, and our minds most often, that we place these projections of love for each other and hope for the best when we align with them on the soul level. Right? Hope for the best, Brenda. We'll see you on the other side of the veil is what some would say, thinking they're somehow going to pick a fight or do the work once they get over there and have a better understanding. We unite in victory most often. And that's why Brenda hears it. For she has forgiven all for their discrepancies in their words and actions. She's very much of a, I need no forgiveness in order to be free to be me. I have hurt and I have been hurt. I honor my vision of love of self. I honor you as you. I will not dishonor you by lying to you about forgiveness. I will forgive you in time. It may or may not be felt as such in this moment, but I know it comes to me freely. I pray none, but play hard is where some others go. And they enjoy the wisdom in their vision of, I love who I am. Okay, others are here saying, I take advantage of the opportunities that arrive for me to have a great time, to well, this was about losing weight and having a cheerful attitude towards life. Do you know how many people I've had to hear from about the nature of who I am based on the physical characteristics of my body versus my mind? It's like sharp as a tack. The whips of soul are what others are afraid of, thinking that this is what we are afraid of. It's part of the process of my own vision of who I was, how I felt at each of those moments, and how I lifted myself out of that idea that I wasn't loved. When I went through the process of love of self and others, I felt it always. What I didn't do is I didn't demean myself as much as open myself up to the nature of the love of who I am from a place and time in which my own soul said she deserves every bit of freedom from Joanne and her mother as much as she can. You see, that was the nature of a revealing of a personal story, right? A personal attack. I'm dealing with people here on one level and hearing the messages from their souls about what's getting created and how it hurts us. So if I disappear out of nowhere, right, the ghosting of Brenda, she's been able to say that I realize in my haste that many are saying we don't disalign with others. We just take a break from the creative process most often and decide to go it alone. When we are alone, we are often creating with the vision of, I love who I am, set me free from those who fear me or are feared from me. There are people who leave. This is not one of those souls. It's a freedom. So they're free from me to be fearful in their world. We're not telling people not to be fearful about things about themselves that they may not have seen or heard. Brenda had to deal with that vision from others as well when she decided to give guidance to others. And that's the nature of opening your heart and saying, I understand, I set you free. You see, I'm not here to let you decide how to be me. I am who I am. We are a creative unit of energy, working together, opening up to the nature of the love of who we are, where we are, how we are, wherever we may land in this moment or in any other. And that doesn't mean we always feel the pain or the joy. It's not a diametrically opposed system that I work with. It's about seeing the benefits of other people's systems. And that's what Brenda will give you, is understanding the messages in many of those systems are very much understood as loving, however limiting they may be to certain souls. So while we would say we honor those systems, we honor those who fall outside of those systems. Correct? They fell nowhere. There's no falling. Those are those wordsmiths that are very on top of it. Brenda's very aware of those ideas about who tries to place others lower than them based on the conditioned ideas of books or methodologies or psychologies or whatnot. We're not diagnosed as insane anymore. It's more about the lost ones in our hearts, correct? I've had to deal with people who were on that vision and came to me in the vision of it. I've had to deal with people who looked at me as if I were that, even as I gave them the beauty of their hearts and their souls. And there's a trusting attribute that many are working with. And if it's not there, it's not there, and it's understood. But it's the secret ingredient that people are wanting to know about. Do you trust me to bring through your own soul's vision of what love is for you? I set you free from me is where many go, not wanting that vision. It scares the crap out of many, is what she just heard. Because in essence, it feels as if the destiny moment is there for many. You have paths of discovery open at every moment. Every choice is upon your heart. Now, we will say there are many that do have the, quote, limitations of their movements, but their joyful discovery of their heart is in each moment. I can choose to feel free in my mind, or I can choose to freely create victimhood for myself and my family. You see, that's where many are vibrating in. We're the victims of society. And in that moment of discovery of those who truly are becoming victims in their minds, many are saying, who can I trust to help me in this process? Who's going to align me with the highest vision of who I am? Who will take my hand and lead me to the source of wisdom that cares for me, honors me, and holds me close in the mind and in the soul level? That's where most are. You see, for me as a soul, I have to be very honest about the nature of what happens to not only my heart, but those who understand. When we bring through the wisdom, it can be a painful moment for certain souls. I wasn't always as aware of the truth as I thought I was. Okay? Truth is very subjective for the most part when it comes to the soul. There are differences of opinions that many are working with, but there are truths to be discovered from various planes of enlightenment. Most will say that a lot of that stuff goes away at a certain point when you rise out of the need to attach to an outcome. And this is where many are. They're attaching themselves to outcomes of faith or vision for the future. And that's when Brenda loses some of that collective vision, because she was attaching herself to an outcome that was more about her own wisdom than the wisdom of those who came before her. When she received her own wisdom about dates and times, it was an interesting aspect of her life. Okay, because she honors everyone whether or not they understand it. And if she is in that moment of the peacekeeping moment, she loves peace so much that it sets her free from the hearts of so many who want conflict in order to rise out of it and see it for what it was. Now, when you rise in the vision of my peacekeeping moment is my own soul that says, I'm with you always. And she hears that vision. Even in those moments of conflict on a soul level, I'm here with you always. It's an interdimensional shifting that most often we go through when we hand ourselves over to the nature of who we are as souls. We create a beautiful vision of love for ourselves and others most often, unless we are here to show others more about ourselves that we ourselves didn't know, such as my moments of passion and glory. The vision of Jesus as a soul. He came to me in his mind, in his moment of glory. You see, that's the nature of what happens when you come into those soul visions, where you rise up into that idea of, I've made it. I'm free. I've set myself free from the conditioning of this plane in many ways. I don't need to feel afraid of who I am or who you are, for I know that we unite in discovery of each other. always loving each other, whether or not we acknowledge it on this plane or not. It's a soul unification process that Brenda offers. It's the uniting of all of us that she is wisdom keeping for. She utilized a wisdom keeping program that she saw was highlighting herself in the positive. And then she said, but wait, there's more there than what I even know. My own soul says you let go. Other souls will say you stick around as long as you can. But when you've united with your own soul, it is almost recommended that you stay the course with wisdom keeping. That can be some of those visions that say we unite on the soul level in a certain realm. This is why many people will stick with the system. But for someone like her, Brenda is more of a, no, we know. We're better off on a soul level, uniting with many, but not necessarily in the vision of this system is holding me hostage. If it's freely granting you wisdom, left and right, you might want to partake in it. Others are saying, I know my soul holds its own beautiful wisdom, and those who create with me will get those views of love from their souls as well. It depends on what kind of leveling up process you're going to work with. If you want to be held in the honor of who you are, join Brenda. Not in the love vibration where everyone is trying to say they love everybody all the time. It's not for everybody, but it's a beautiful vibration she participated in. Her soul is in that vibration on the highest level, right? It's all of us uniting in that victory dance. But it has its moments of discovery for females that can be very victimizing. Because in essence, if you're in that vibration, you're not going to attract those that necessarily want to hurt you. But when you ride in the vision of my soul is on board, I'm not going to take you to that place where someone would try to disarm you from who you are, set you adrift on the plains of soul, and just leave you behind. It can be felt that way sometimes. And Brenda herself acknowledges that, yes, there are times when I feel like my soul is not within reach as much as it used to be. But it's more about finding the grips of life and feeling the grittiness of it. And so that's the nature of what we're here to do. There's a grittiness to our love in certain circles. Oh, man. And that's why we want people to understand, if you are looking at people who are just hiding out from the world, they're not necessarily going to be the same when they come into contact with those who are not of that system. And that's why so many people are like, oh man, I cannot handle this. Brenda is like, I know how to handle anyone, anywhere for the most part. But it's not from a place of discovery. It's more, I let people be who they are. Whether or not I challenge them to some kind of mental mindset duel or not is not really what it is. I may disagree on one level, but it's not who you are, and I already know that. I've seen so many people who have disparaging comments about who I am, then come up to me and say, I just didn't know who you are. I didn't know who you were, right? I don't know you, Brenda. And so many will think that by aligning with someone like me, they're somehow going to get close to who I am. When in fact, it's not what's needed for most people. You don't need to know who I am on the intimacy of who I am. But that's where many are. They're afraid of the intimate moments with their soul that would cry with them, hold them in their hearts. The energy vibration that she holds with her soul is so strong, she gets cradled in her pain moments. It's a beautiful process for many. It can be tragic on the mind for some. But when you open up to that nature of I'm loved dearly and always, no matter what comes my way, no matter who crosses my path, and no matter what victimhood lies upon my soul. I've had to place soul victimhood out there for people to try to understand the nature of what happens when that does occur. And many will say, oh, I've seen that before, those lost ones. They're not lost any more than you or I. In fact, they're more wise in many ways. What they didn't do is they didn't align with the highest vision of who they were or are. And they see themselves as those caretaking ones on this plane, right? We often don't even realize what we're saying. That's what some people would say. But when you're in the discovery of moments, cherished, that's what many of us are looking for. We're wanting those moments to cherish for ourselves, our families, our loved ones, our soul members. You see, I honor those who unite with that kind of vision most often. It's hard for me sometimes as her soul to deal the death blows to her that she's receiving. She's stronger than most who know how to handle that vision of, I'm dealing with the terrorists that you all love to adore in your hearts. We focus so much on those terrorist activities. The Greenpeace vision is also coming through saying we honor her vision now of climate change being deconstructed. We own the vision of how we create what we create and what we focus on. We like to create the issues so we can solve them. Brenda was being created from problem-solving skills, right? Her soul knows how to wind up and hit the home runs for many. It doesn't mean we don't do the visions of protective justice for her. She's protected by many, whether or not they want to know that, because her vision was under attack by the soul of soul of another soul who claims to have superiority in this reign of terror. Do you want to know what it's like to go soul to soul on the soul level with someone who aligns with her, loves her, adores her, but hates her for her wisdom? Because it hurt her, is what they think. This is not the person I know and love. This can't be the best of the best if they're experiencing the trauma of soul, correct? It was a projection of evil from a Satan worshiper that she had to unwind and uncover. So when she says, yes, I'm that kind of soul that knows how to do that work for those that are creating with that vision, it went away. And the peace reigned free. You see, I never bought into the vision of it in the first place. I don't have that vision to create from. So if you want to rise out of the vision of limitation, you could say, I'm going to go freely create with that, as many have. Or you could say, I'm now risen out of the conditioning of it, which is what most people are working with, who are on the soul level, right? Various levels of conditioning, various levels of wisdom, various levels of enlightenment. It depends on where you are. And that's why there are souls who are saying, I wouldn't take that vision on. You want someone who aligns with you, who can handle anything brought to you. I know how to see past the limitations of those souls and to see behind the bridges. Those bridges of discovery are beautiful for all of us. I understand that people needed to create from that for various reasons. And if you are one of those souls, your soul would honor you and say, you'll rise up out of it at some point. You'll rise out of the conditioning that many placed upon us in those books of limitation. The fall from grace was just a myth. It was for those who thought that that couldn't be achieved on this plane. The enlightenment of who we are, the glorification of our souls, right? People are going to say, ooh, that's an evil thing, right? We don't glorify ourselves and others. Who says? Might that be a power play on the soul level for others who want to pretend that they're of the wise ones only, right? I'm the only one that made it there, correct? So I get to tell everyone else how to be. Versus all of those spiritual warriors who are saying we honor our souls and always will. Whether or not they did evil on this plane or not. That's the high of the high. That's how Brenda knows the vision of victimhood versus vision. Okay, I know how to handle those souls who say we honor her because she's not holding us accountable for our sins. We already go through the process when we cross over, much less so in the vibration of I'm now at a higher level of understanding for who we all are as one. And when you do that vision as one, you get to be handed that kind of conditioning if it's coming from a certain soul, or what does it feel like from our own vision to be of love of self and love of another or love of all, right? Because it's not just about the human potential. This is about trusting our souls. I can look in and get the idea of concepts that have nothing to do with another person. The consciousness of the planet, the consciousness of bees. I can give you your animals' visions. Now, of course, they're all soul vision, but many are thinking it's just about the people. The human potential is probably the strongest potential we've had in a long time. To be free of the narrative of souls that say that we are limited here on this plane. That's the vibration that many of the books are saying. I'm limited. I'm not able to express. I'm not able to be. I'm not able to hear what I want to hear. I'm not able to walk the walk and talk the talk that says that I can give you that vision. But it's not necessarily a bad thing. Some people like to have the limitations to keep them in line or in that confined space of it's known. And sometimes Brenda says, oh, I'm ready to fly free of that known. Because it sure doesn't feel good for a lot of people. Correct? And so the unknown offers us the opportunity to expand our wings of faith for those that fly in that vision and to free themselves from the victimhood of what they think is going on. This is where your souls can come through and say, here's what's happening on a soul level. Here's what's going on here in your lives, whether or not you want to admit to it or not. You're free from me is where Joanne and her mother said on this plane, right? No, it was on a soul level saying, we understand. We are not always going to be able to create beauty if we're thinking that there's something wrong with you. Okay, if there's something wrong with me, it's something that's wrong with them. Do you understand that what we project onto another is like in the highest of highs, what's wrong with us? But that's where most people can't handle that vision. And we have to align with that idea that it's just a limitation of our souls. Okay, so there are levels of love of self and others and wisdom and the mindset that so many are working with in those ideas of I just need to change my mind. Many are operating under twisting the narrative just a bit to see it from a different perspective. That's what Brenda does. She's like, let's just shift the perspective just enough so you can see yourself through another lens, and maybe, just maybe, be able to see yourself as beautiful, wise, and always unlovable from certain souls, right? How many have ever got that message? I've never, ever heard that message before in my life, but other people will say that and place that on another. And Brenda says, good luck with that from a soul level. It's virtually impossible, because as souls, we come in through the vision of a body, the vessel. Do you think that we haven't figured out how we're going to come in to this world from a soul level? And do you think that when we exit this plane, there aren't others there adoring us for our journeys? That's why our journeys are cherished. Wherever we land, we get to be free from the conditioning of this plane. That's why so many are thinking, oh, let me go, into another plane. There is a benefit to those who are raising themselves up out of the victimhood of who they are or were or where they're going, based on the idea of, I feel like my path forward isn't a great place for me, so let me align with somebody else. Okay, that's what some people do. They want to be free of the conditioning of safety. And that's where Brenda goes, because she's like, I'm not afraid of the afterlife because I've seen enough of it. I know I'm loved in so many ways. And yet, people are worried about who they are in their hearts. I miss my mom, set me free, right? I have people who say, I miss my mom, right? The mother that was supposed to cherish me, right? Or me, I miss my mom. How many people know that vision and say, I never had a relationship with my mother? There are many souls who come in who are not connected in essence to their families, but they have the vision of who they were connected with on the other side of the veil as well, whether or not they know who they are by name or not. We are always loved and adored by our souls, and we are wise to know that sometimes our souls are meant to vibrate away from certain souls. And that's one personhood at a time, right? So that's the nature of when we trust in the process as an individual versus the trusting of ourselves as a collective. And this is where Brenda shines her light of love for everybody. It is obvious that the world is not falling apart. You just have to take a look through a different lens. This is where I shine my light of love for all of us. If you have the perspective that my job here is to point out every single issue that is of worth and detriment to everybody, that is where some souls go. They continue to look for the worth in the detriment of who we are. I'm trying to point out where people are wrong in their world versus we are all where we need to be, loved and adored for it, and can move forward from the idea that we need to go rescue everybody else. The best thing we can do is honor ourselves, honor our wisdom, honor the paths that people discover themselves on, allow for them to experience their journeys in whatever ways they can, hold them up if they need to be held up for whatever reason, and assume that the majority of the people on this plane are not vibrating in the destruction or the destructive process of soul vision, right? Most people think that soul vision is somehow the beauty of everybody creating. It's a process of discovery for her and her family tree, for the most part, about what it is that we align with. And when I go outside of my family tree, we create more and more units of discovery of who we are. I have paths of discovery with each relationship that I create with. I have paths of discovery within each grouping that I am a part of. I have paths of discovery with each united vision of discovery on this plane I claim to be a part of, or I am creating. So you see, the United States has its own vibration based on the identification of it versus the United States of what? Israel, right? And Palestine? Are they united in victory, in justice, right? Others are saying that there's something wrong with their visions. Brenda says, I see the process unfolding. I'm not afraid to call it what it is. Okay. Others will say it's a lose-lose situation, right? That's what Brenda says. It's a lose-lose. There's no winners when we go to war. Not from the highest levels. Our souls will learn through that process of discovery of what war really is. The Italian stallions coming through. Sylvester Stallone. Don't break the barrier of soul. She knows what she's saying. He's saying that there's a vision of the Italians that are surrounding her, saying she knows how to do Stalin as well as Mussolini. She's got the vibrancy and the beauty and the brains and the brawn to take on any soul hostage that needs to come through, which is what she's hearing in certain ways. I was a hostage to my family identity, my family crisis, my family vision, my family's victory. So this is where many are. They're in my family, my family, my family. That's one level of love. It's only that level that many are operating in, thinking that there is somehow a cultural identity that is special, unique, or somehow supposed to be highlighted in the vibration of we unite in vision as separate is where those books are. No vision that separates humanity from itself is of the high. There can be no separation in this vision on this plane as much as the vision of, he's a handsome devil, isn't he? He believes in that vision just as much as many others. And yet she says, I can see it in your eyes, right? He would say, I would be freaked out by his mother's vision that would come through and say, she knows how to take care of his heart. Whether or not he's vibrating in that vision of it or not. Brenda knows how to handle souls that feel that the devil is the working of the mind only, right? No, they believe it as a source of creative endeavor that everyone's operating in, because that's what they were told. And that's so unnatural for the majority of the people on this plane. Okay, to sit there and place everyone in some kind of situation that is detrimental to the mindset of who they are. It's about letting people know the reality of how we create in our conscious and subconscious memories. So this is why, in essence, some of them are like, I am in that vision because it was, drilled into me. And that's why their souls would come through with extra love and adoration for the wisdom that mother, saying Brenda was a whippersnapper, she would give him his heart and his soul. She would say, you're loved and adored no matter what vision of victim or victimhood you are perpetrating on others. That's the nature of it. That's what people don't want to hear. So that's the nature why many of us here are saying, I have to hurt others so I can be felt or heard as the victimizer. Many of us are wanting to hurt others so that we are not the ones to be hurt. Or we were granted those ideas that we are the victims who are now perpetrating that vision onto others. And when we use perpetrate, we don't mean it as a categorization of perpetrators, because we are not called those identities, but that's the labels that many here would utilize. I'm choosing a behavior at a certain place and time and moment in order to see myself for who I am. That's the basics of it. That's how you unwind the victimhood and the victimizer vision. This is how you can free yourself from those labels that others are giving you. If you have done some deed of some sort that has placed you in an identity crisis, because then you create from the crisis of I'm of no good, or I'm of low worth, or I'm of, victimhood, or I am, not worthy, or of whatnot. Your soul aligns you with the vision of love always, whether or not it feels like it is a different story, because it could be that you are here to be guided into a better path of glory for yourself rather than your family tree. Or your family tree is there saying, we love you, we adore you in every moment. You just aren't aware of it as of yet. That's where some go. They feel like I will never be able to align with my family for the evil deeds that they placed upon us here. That is a different kind of vision. Most souls know we take off the conditioning enough to see our creative process for what it is, or what it was, depending on how we want to look at our lives as souls. Brenda is able to move forward and backward in her timeline, and so she can see the beauty of herself no matter where she is. I understand my victimhood. I understand the victory dance I often do in order to free myself from such a nature of guilt, blame, and shame. I feel it already. I know when I'm doing something, and I align with it, and I try to do better. As a soul, I love you always. So now it's time to wrap up this intimate discussion of trust, right? It's an intimate process for her and her soulmate too. Beyond most people's understanding of hearing from them and knowing those visions are there for many others as well, past, present, and future. Believe it or not. So with that, I want to say thank you for watching. If you want to watch more of these episodes, please like, follow, or subscribe, depending on what format you're watching this in. And as always, for those that are curious, my soul has indeed guided me in this process of discovery, and has always said to her, you're beautiful, wise, and soulful. That's where others are saying, curiosity killed the cat. We can lead ourselves into some of those planes of danger, but in essence, it's always the wise ones that know how to handle those hearts. So have an amazing day. And as Brenda would still say, stay curious, wise, and soulful. Have a wonderful day.